May 25, 1996, the sleepy college town of San Luis Obispo, California, was forever changed. A 19-year-old student named Kristin Smart disappeared from California State University, leaving behind no clues, no witnesses, and no answers. What began as a normal night for Kristin, a freshman with a promising future, quickly turned into a nightmare. Kristin had attended a party with friends to celebrate the end of the school year. By 2 a.m., she had consumed alcohol and felt disoriented. She decided to walk back to her dorm alone. This was a college town, and walking back alone was not uncommon. But Kristin never arrived. Her friends, concerned after several hours of not hearing from her, alerted the authorities. They began searching the area, but it was already too late. The community, once peaceful and serene, was gripped by the tension and fear of not knowing what had happened to Kristin. There were no signs of a struggle, no indications of where she had gone, and no trace of her anywhere. The only clue was that Kristin had been seen walking with a fellow student, Paul Flores, just before she vanished. That was the last time Kristin Smart was seen alive. Paul Flores was a fellow student at California State University, a socially awkward young man with a history of making people feel uneasy, especially women. He was not a close friend of Kristin's, but had been spotted walking with her on the night she disappeared. His connection to the case would come to dominate the investigation. Several witnesses reported seeing Kristin and Paul walking together that night. But after they parted ways, Kristin's path grew uncertain. Paul later told investigators that he had walked her halfway back to her dorm before leaving her alone. But something about his story didn't sit right with law enforcement. Paul Flores had been the last person to see Kristin alive, and his odd behavior, including a pattern of contradictory statements and changing alibis, made him a key suspect. When investigators questioned him about the events of that night, Paul's stories didn't add up. He insisted that he had parted ways with Kristin, but when his timeline was checked, it became clear that his story was filled with holes. Witnesses reported seeing him near the area where Kristin had been last, but no one saw him leave the area or go home, which only raised more questions. As the investigation unfolded, the town was divided. Some believed Paul was innocent, merely a victim of circumstances, while others believed he was hiding something darker. But without clear evidence, law enforcement could not move forward. As days turned to weeks, Kristin's family, led by her determined parents, Stan and Denise Smart, refused to give up hope. But the silence surrounding their daughter's disappearance left them with growing anxiety and grief. In the months that followed Kristin's disappearance, law enforcement launched a full-scale investigation. Search teams combed the university campus and the surrounding areas, hoping to find a clue that would lead them to Kristin. They even brought in cadaver dogs to search the nearby areas, but no trace of her was found. However, the investigation hit a crucial turning point when police re-interviewed Paul Flores. During questioning, he gave inconsistent statements, and his behavior became increasingly suspicious. He had already been on their radar, but it wasn't until his mother was also questioned and implicated in the investigation that they began to piece things together. Authorities discovered that Paul had been acting strangely in the days following Kristin's disappearance. He had gone to great lengths to cover up evidence, even washing his clothes and cleaning his car. But there were still no clear physical clues linking him directly to the crime. Despite the mounting suspicions against Paul, law enforcement found themselves at a standstill. They had no body, no concrete evidence of foul play, and no confession from Paul. The case slowly turned cold, but Kristin's family was not ready to give up. Stan and Denise Smart led a relentless public campaign, constantly drawing attention to the case and demanding justice for their daughter. But with no new developments, the years passed, and the pain of Kristin's absence deepened. The investigation continued in fits and starts. Police would search new areas, interview new witnesses, and follow up on every possible lead, but nothing concrete ever surfaced. As time passed, the fear of the case going cold grew more intense. Kristin's family was left to wonder if they would ever know what had happened to their daughter. As the investigation continued, the focus began to shift to Paul Flores' background. investigators discovered a disturbing history of sexual misconduct allegations against him. He had been involved in several incidents with women at the university, where he had allegedly made them feel uncomfortable and had been known for his troubling behavior. While these incidents were never formally prosecuted, they painted a darker picture of Paul. Some investigators began to believe that Kristin's disappearance was not a random event, but part of a pattern of behavior that Paul had been hiding for years. As the case evolved, it became clear that Paul was more than just a student walking home with a classmate. He was a young man hiding dark secrets, and Kristin may have been his next victim. In an ironic twist, it was revealed that Paul Flores had been allegedly trying to cover his tracks from the very beginning. He had allegedly tried to take advantage of Kristin when she was vulnerable, and when she resisted, the situation escalated into something deadly. The motive behind the crime was no longer just a random encounter. It was an act of violence fueled by a desire to assert control and silence a victim. But despite the growing evidence, there was still no body. Without physical proof, Paul remained free, and the case seemed hopeless. In 1999, nearly 3 years after Kristin's disappearance, a major breakthrough occurred. Paul Flores, who had continued to evade justice, made a shocking confession to a close friend. He admitted, in a casual conversation, that he had killed Kristin, though he would not go into the specifics. He said, "I did something bad. I hurt her. I didn't mean to, but it happened." This confession finally gave law enforcement the ammunition they needed to press charges. But still, there was no body. No physical remains of Kristin had been found. And without that final piece of the puzzle, it was impossible to prove exactly how Kristin had died or where her body was hidden. Nevertheless, the confession, combined with Paul's suspicious behavior and the ongoing investigation, led authorities to arrest him. Paul Flores was charged with Kristin's murder. The legal battle that followed was one of the most contentious in the town's history. Paul continued to deny the crime, claiming that the confession was a misunderstanding, but the evidence stacked against him was overwhelming. In the end, Kristin Smart's family found the justice they had been fighting for. Paul Flores was convicted and sentenced to life in prison, though the story didn't have the closure that the Smart family had hoped for. Kristin's body was never found, and the true extent of Paul's actions on that fateful night would remain a mystery. Though the case came to an official conclusion, Kristin's family was forever scarred. The wound of losing their daughter would never truly heal, but at least they had fought tirelessly for justice. Her memory and the legacy of her fight for truth would live on forever. The case of Kristin Smart remains one of the most chilling and emotional true crime stories of the 1990s. It was a case that gripped an entire community and kept a family on the edge of their seats for years. From the moment she disappeared, Kristin's name became synonymous with loss, grief, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Her story is a reminder of the hidden darkness that can lurk beneath the surface, even in seemingly safe and quiet places. It also shows the power of family, love, and the unyielding determination to uncover the truth, no matter how long it takes. The pain of not having a body to bury will never go away, but Kristin's spirit will forever be remembered. Her story is one of mystery, heartbreak, and, in the end, justice.